Welcome to the Soul Engineering Your Life podcast. I'm Ravi, your Soul Engineer. I work with business owners, CEOs, and professionals to help them grow their business and get their life back. And this podcast is designed to help you step out of the busyness, out of the crazy, and bring more heart and soul into all of your life.
Check it out, check it out. Oh, are you ready for this?
How do you find your center when the whole world's gone wackadoodle? If you look back over the last year, there are some words that perhaps define it that have been so overused, so abused. Unprecedented, new normal, pivot. There's been so much change, so much turbulence. It makes no sense, and it's created so much uncertainty. COVID, let's start with there. It started out, we didn't know what to touch. We were scrubbing our groceries. We were washing our hands if we touched anything, scrubbing down our houses, some people, even though no one else came to their house. The restrictions that you couldn't see anyone, you couldn't go anywhere. Kids couldn't go to school. We couldn't go to work. And this whole thing of working from home. And let's dive into this whole thing about work. The working from home creates new structures. How do you do it without all of those new ways? You had to learn all the technology, the Zoom, how to use that. The drinking game of the year was you're on mute. Go for it. The challenges at home. Where do you work? For so many people, it was a kitchen table maybe, or just a closet almost that they found, especially if there were two people working from home. It was a challenge. And then on top of that, you've got the kids at home. What do you do with the kids? And guys, here's something I gotta say, I feel ashamed for men everywhere because the research is pretty solid. Women took the brunt of the homeschooling. We should be sharing that. It shouldn't be falling on them, but yet that's what happened. So this really, in many ways, disrupted women's careers more than men's careers if you were part of a couple. Now, let's look at family. Everyone's on top of each other. You've got the kids there. They're needing to get online. So are you for work. All that stuff going on. They're running around doing all these things. It was the norm in Zoom meetings to have cats and dogs pop in and be part of the meeting. That's just what happened. You'd see cats going along the sofa behind people, and it's just become, dare I say it, the new normal in that. And, there's so much we had to learn, and yet parents, if you had school-age kids, you also had to take on becoming teachers and being much more engaged in your kids' journey as they went forward. Then let's look at some of the broader scale changes that started really, really accelerating in 2020. It started before, but the Black Lives Matter movement took on real steam last year with George Floyd. The ongoing schism, primarily in the United States, but in other countries, it's here as well in Canada, and in other countries, you saw all of this, the misinformation, the disinformation, the fake news, so that people didn't know what to believe. There's huge schisms in society, and that came to a peak just recently with the riots in D.C. And again, this primarily affected America, but it impacted everybody as well all around the world, because what happened there is impacting all over the world. And those same schisms are happening elsewhere as well, because the internet carries these ideologies and movements all over the map. So, along with all of this uncertainty, there's the second pandemic that was going on, a huge rise in mental health challenges. You know, the interesting thing is, before all this happened, there were a lot of people who weren't happy with where they were in life or in the relationship, but they avoided facing it. They kept themselves busy. We had an epidemic of busyness, that everyone was so busy that they couldn't slow down to really look at themselves, to look in the mirror and see what was working and what wasn't working. Well, the interesting thing about that is, one of the things that happened there was all of that got brought to the fore. And I'll come back to that point. Along with all of this, people lost their support systems, both personal and professional. You couldn't go hang out with your friends. You couldn't do all that. Yes, you could get together on Zoom, but it just wasn't the same. And then the professional support systems. And we get our identity from a lot of that. And that's underlying what I'm really talking about here. We lost the familiar. And let me illustrate this with an example. What I'd like you to do is, as long as you're not driving or operating machinery, just cross your arms. Okay? Now, cross them the other way. So if your left was over your right, put your right over your left, or vice versa. Now, first of all, most people, when they do this, they go back the same way they were. If you're able to change it, how does that feel? Weird. Really weird. And that's a simple little thing. If you crossed it the opposite way a few times a day for a week, it would start to feel normal again. The new normal, dare I say. And the thing is, something that minor can feel that off when you do it, because the old thing was familiar. What we had is what we knew. A lot of people talk about the comfort zone. I don't call it the comfort zone at all, because in my coaching work, I've worked with people who have fought irrationally to stay in toxic situations that are so uncomfortable. But they were familiar. People will fight irrationally to stay in the familiar zone. And what happened is, before all of this happened, people just kept themselves busy so that they could stay in the familiar zone. It wasn't comfortable, but it's what they knew. So they did that. They stayed in the familiar that was not comfortable at all. So what that says is that we defined ourselves by what's outside of us, by other people, by our relationships, by our jobs, by things in the world that we thought were stable. But we found out that not necessarily so. We didn't define ourselves from within. We defined ourselves by the world outside of us. And when that changed, we were lost. We crossed our arms the other way, and we could not figure out how to get it back the way we knew. And we were thrown totally off balance, totally off center. Because we based who we are, to whatever extent, on things outside of us, people outside of us, situations outside of us. And when all that changed, we didn't know who we were. We didn't know where center was. So I think there were some blessings in 2020. Now, don't get me wrong. There were many challenges. There were many people that suffered, and my heart goes out to them all. But what 2020 did and the lockdowns did is they forced us to sit still. We've been running around busy, busy, busy for so long, avoiding looking at ourselves. And what lockdown did is it forced you to sit there. And you can only watch Netflix for so long before you start running out of stuff to watch. And so you have to start looking at yourself. And so you start asking questions. Is this enough? Is this life important? Are these things that I've fought so hard for really, really important? And if not, what do I really want? What's really important to me? And what it let us do is go more deeply within to ask other questions. Who am I? Who do I want to be? What do I really value? And what's really, really important to me when I'm not running around like crazy trying to be busy? And what started happening is people started realizing that what they were doing, a lot of people found that all the things that they'd been trying to do, all the things that they'd been spending time on really didn't matter. There were relationships that had been over for a long, long time, but they'd been so busy they didn't have to deal with it. And then all of a sudden, you're stuck right there, locked in with that person for weeks on end. And it's like, I really don't like how you chew. And all of the things that didn't work. And you saw the rates of relationships ending and divorces skyrocket last year because people finally had to face that this wasn't working anymore. And people started realizing the things that they were doing in their own life weren't what they were really passionate about. They may not know yet what they're really passionate about, but they know this isn't it. What I've been striving so hard for. Really, do I really care? Not really. And the interesting thing is, I think, the genie's out of the bottle now. It's out. And you start making those wishes about, oh, I wish this was different. I wish this. You can't shove all those wishes back in the lamp. They're out now. Your brain's been going there saying, there's got to be more, something more. And it started thinking in those ways. So there was a choice here. Before, we defined ourselves by things outside of us. They could be in the norms of society, what we felt society wanted us to be, what was important, getting this job, getting this car, getting this house, the picket fence, the corner office, all of these things. And really, is that important when you have all of those things pulled away from you? Not necessarily. The other choice is to connect much more deeply within, to do what I call soul engineering, to connect with your core, your inner sense of purpose, your unique gift that you bring into this world to share with others and to help yourself grow, and your inner deep sense of self of who you are, not based on anybody or anything outside of you. And then you connect more deeply with that core and then re-sculpt your life around that. That's what soul engineering is. So the choice is to define yourself by the outer world, which we have found is potentially very, very unstable, or to connect deeply with your core and then adapt to what you need to in the outer world. One of my passions is dance. And what's critical in dance is to move from your core. If you're moving the wrong way, you're conveying the wrong information. If you lead with other parts of your body, your partner cannot sense that movement through your frame, through the movement. It feels off balance. So you have to connect with your own core. You have to center yourself, then move that core. And as your partner moves, you have to adapt and move from that core. You find your balance from within and your center, and then you move with your partner through there. I think it's probably similar to, I was out today to one of the places I love by the ocean, and a lot of surfers there. And I think it's probably similar to what surfers do. I haven't done it, but I'm guessing it's the same thing. They don't, try to find the balance from the wave. From what I have seen, they get on that board. Their core, again, is where they find their balance on the board. Then they adapt to whatever the wave brings to them, whatever it does. But it comes from their balance, their center within. And I believe that's how we have to live our life. Not by basing it on what's all around us, outside of us, but basing it on our core, connecting to our core, and then allowing that to let us surf the waves of life, to dance the rhythms of life. So this is our opportunity now to really delve in deeply to who we are at the core, and then soul engineer our lives moving forward, following our passion. So our motivation is built in. You don't need to motivate yourself if you're coming from your core. That's where your motivation comes from. The deeper you can connect with your core and sculpt your life from there, the more engaging, powerful, motivating it's going to be. So join me as we continue to dive into how we can soul engineer our lives.
I know I got this. Just watch me do this.
Today, my guest is Jennifer Buchanan, who runs JB Music Therapy. And Jennifer, welcome to the Passion of Entrepreneurship.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely delighted. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. Now, before we get into what happened when you graduated, I'm curious, did you have any sort of an entrepreneurial bug before you went to university, and such as when you were younger?
It's interesting you asked that question. So I was one of those kids where my first real job, that I would call it, was about when I was 11 and a half years old.
Okay.
And I went and I worked at about 4 doors down from us was a dog grooming salon.
Okay.
And the owner of her home-based business needed some help with washing the dogs. Can you imagine anything more pleasurable than washing a dog
And get
and
paid
the
for it.
occasional cat? Yeah. And so I would go there and I would help her.
Mhm.
And at the same time, and thinking about it now, this is very reflective of how I am today. I did a few different things. You know, I started mowing lawns, and I also babysat, and I would, do maybe I would help deliver a package. Like, there were a variety of different things that I would do from 11 on to make a few dollars. And I was already thinking about, what can I do to get through the summer and be engaged also. I loved meeting new people and socializing with them. So that started pretty early on. Yeah, go ahead.
What was it you think that fueled that? I mean, you had the exposure to
Yeah.
this entrepreneur, the dog groomer
Mhm.
and such, but what else do you think fueled that from that early age to get out there and do that? The socializing you mentioned, but what?
Yeah. Well, it was also like, I can remember her in particular because she just loved what she was doing. And it was really exciting to see someone being able to create, this opportunity to share a service. She was doing it in her own home. She had her
Mhm.
brochures. She created a logo, and something sparked from that. I think where it also connected was years later. I had been estranged from my father for a long time.
Okay.
My parents divorced, and I would see my dad maybe once or twice a year, and I felt really uncomfortable around him.
Mhm.
But my dad owned his own business. And I can remember being 18 years old. So now I've done the dog grooming, and I've done the
Yeah.
lawns, and I've done the babysitting. So I was a little bit ready for something new. And I met up with my dad, and it was one of those really uncomfortable moments at 18. And we were sitting having dinner, and I can remember saying something about, I'm looking for something new in the summer. And my dad said, "Why don't you come and work with me?"
Hmm.
And I thought, that's interesting. And it turned out that my dad was a really, really crappy dad and the best boss I ever had.
Wow.
So I went and I worked with my dad for about 4 months. And he taught me how to do quotes and invoicing and meeting with customers. He took me to meetings. He introduced me to a lot, and I also got to do some technical work. He was in the metal industry, so I
Okay.
I was shearing metal. I was doing all sorts of things, and he showed me all the layers of what his business did and how it all worked together. And I think that I love systems. At the end
Okay.
of the day, I love seeing how all the systems work. And there's no greater system than a business system that allows you to express the dream that you have.
Right. So you actually take your dream and concretize it into that. And it's the systems that keep it going because you can't be there all the time.
Exactly.
Okay. So that spark, you got that then before you went off to university.
Yeah. And even, yeah, before I started knowing I was even going to be a music therapist, but it came in handy because no one had ever heard of music therapy before.
Right.
But that didn't dissuade me because I have now seen a dog groomer start dog grooming in her house. And I saw my dad taking his passion for engineering and shearing metal and creating things and building a business. So I've already seen people do impossible things. What's one more impossible thing?
The key there, though, is you're talking about people that are following their passion. It's not just doing a
Absolutely.
business.
That's right.
So for you, you still had to discover your passion. When you first went to university, you really hadn't found music therapy.
Well, it was interesting. I have had pieces of it along the way. I certainly loved music and like you, I loved science. I love science a lot, actually, both on the social side, and the more hard science side. And I was thinking several times that I wanted to get into something medical.
Okay.
And so that was there. And I had people in my life bringing up the term music therapy throughout my life. I saw a program out of the United Kingdom on Christmas Eve. Again, it was around when I was about 18 years old. So a lot of things happened then.
Yes.
And I saw this great program. Paul McCartney was introducing the world to what music therapy was. And
Really?
and it was called the Nordoff and Robin School in the UK.
Okay.
And I saw this work with music therapists working with kids and I saw the kids feeling free and successful and learning without necessarily thinking they were learning, but they were learning. And I went, that's feeling really in alignment with all the experiences I've had to date. So it sort of all started happening at the same time.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's amazing. So then, you learned the systems, the structure, the social connection you'd already found, and parallel to that is discovering where your passion lay that you wanted to build out.
But I didn't know how hard it was going to be. Just because you've got a passion and you've got a whole bunch of things figured out, you don't have it all figured out.
Really?
And and it would lead me down this road where I would move from British Columbia to Alberta, to Calgary. I would leave all my social supports. I would leave all my family. I had an internship opportunity here. I finished my internship, and then what? What do I do now? And that looked like sleeping in my car for a couple of days. That looked like getting a retail job that at least was going to help me get a rooming house that I could live in. And then it meant a lot of phone calls because the only way I was going to be able to share the work that I so passionately did want to do was to be entrepreneurial about it and start right from the ground up.
So you had to start because back then music therapy really wasn't known. You couldn't go get a job.
No, there was nothing. Yeah.
So tell me about that process in terms of building that business. First of all, there's so many things that popped in mind. There's educating people that it's actually a thing.
Right.
And then you've got to get to the logistics of to even do the marketing. You need some financial support.
Right. Okay. So this was the first 3 years for sure. There was something. So I eventually found a rooming house, and the rooming house was, one where I had to ask, can I pay you at the end of the month? I'm certain I'm going to get enough money and I'm going to be able to pay you. And bless Mr. George's heart. He must have looked at this kid and said, yes, we will make this work. So he gave me a room in his house, which happened to be just down the road from that retail job that I was doing. And
Okay.
it was also just around the corner from a library. Because Ravi, you've got to remember, this is pre-computer, pre-email, pre-Google. It's all that. How do you find work? And I don't know. I used to go to the university library, but I don't know if I've ever really entered a lot of city libraries in my time. But something drew me there. I walked in, and I will never forget her. She was behind the distribution desk. Is that what you call the desk? Yeah, the distribution desk at the library. She was standing right there. I walked up, and I'm sure I just spewed about what music therapy was and what I was doing in the city, and that I was brand new and I didn't know what I was doing. And she said the magic words, "I can help you." Oh, gosh. And when I heard that, and she looked at me with such meaning and intention, I knew she was going to help me. And she turned around and she went searching through shelving in the back, and she brought out this thing called the Blue Book.
Okay.
And yeah, the Blue Book. And the Blue Book is what you would Google today to find all of the clients that you would want to serve. So there's going to be clients for all industries, and you've got something else. But in my profession, it's going to be a list of the executive directors and the nonprofit organizations and those serving a variety of people that are have goals and are going through transitions, and I wasn't allowed to take the book out. So she said, "Do you have any money?" And I didn't have a lot, but I had a little bit, and I had enough that I was able to start with the photocopying of a few pages. She let me photocopy some of them.
Yeah.
And I would take those pages home, and I would have a highlighter pen. And from there, I would make the first call. And I know this doesn't happen very often, but the first call said yes. And they invited me into this beautiful group home. I'm going to say their name because it was amazing. Scenic Bow Legion Group Home 104. That was the name of the place. And they welcomed me into their home. And that Friday night, I facilitated my first session in my first home, and they booked me every Friday night. And that was the start. That was the start.
So I want to just take a small step back. The idea of cold calling is a huge barrier for most people.
Yep.
So you went back to your room in the rooming house. You highlighted those pages.
Yeah.
What did you do to get the strength to pick up that phone and call? What did you have to go through that first time?
Yeah, I was nervous, and I still get nervous. I still don't enjoy that part of it at all. What helps me anyways is, first of all, knowing that what you do works. So be confident in that, that what you do is going to make a difference in somebody's life. And I knew that already. I also wasn't stepping way out of scope. I knew that going to this particular population and working in this group home, I had already had practicums in those settings. So I had experience. I'd been there before. So you can go in with a certain level of competence and confidence with it. And then what it is telling people a story. And we talk about this all the time. It's allowing people in their minds to see what's going to happen before it even happens.
This is during the call.
It is during the call. And then it ends with I'd love to show you. I'd love to show you that. So that's how this has worked for me anyway.
That's amazing. So, and from there, from getting that first gig and then becoming a weekly gig, then you've got something to use, another story to build on with the next calls. And
Exactly. Yeah.
okay. So another challenge that's, and particularly back then, you and I started our businesses similar times, uh, that business owners have is if they're not, say, in manufacturing or in a traditional service that banks get,
Mm-hmm.
getting financial support can be really challenging. How was your journey in that?
It was impossible. It
Okay.
was absolutely impossible. So, in regards to professional supports at the time, I tried a few different ways because I did know I would need those. So, the first thing I did was get an accountant. And that first accountant, when I laid out my business plan, and even though I had what I felt was a pretty decent plan for a junior entrepreneur entering into a field, the accountant looked at it, and the first thing they said is, "This isn't going to fly in this city." That was my first response. I went on to another accountant. So I
love it.
I knew I needed some help. But the same thing kept happening with the banks. The banks were real problematic for me. The most I was able to do in the first 10 years of my business and going to the banks, and even though I was able to show defined growth,
Yeah.
in order to scale my business, I still needed some capital. In those first 10 years, the most I could really get was a credit card. Everyone's happy to give you credit to pay at 21% interest. That seemed to not be a problem. But to even get a line of credit or something at a lower interest rate, that was impossible for me unless I had a house to put up to do it. And I didn't have a house at that time. I was fresh out of school and I was completely under having student loans again that were, remember how high the interest rate were on our student loans?
Yeah.
It was so terrible. And so this has been a struggle. And I really got turned off banks. I have to say that in general, and I tried a variety of different ones.
Mm-hmm.
I have also found that even today, my staff, who are salaried staff, they have an easier time getting loans or getting mortgages because they can show the piece of paper that I give them to say that they have a job. But I'm still a business owner in a service industry, and it's not as easy. I have to work pretty hard for that. And I've always wondered about that a little bit, but it hasn't been so simple. And so I gave up on that. I gave up with the fact I was going to get any financial assistance whatsoever, or just support, professional support.
Right.
I wasn't going to get any of that. And so it was going to be up to me. And up to me meant a lot of those cold calls, building a portfolio. And then I got pregnant. Which is a whole other thing. Now what do I do? And so my private practice quickly turned into a company because I had an opportunity to hire somebody. And I started hiring music therapists. And now I'm no longer in business just for myself, by myself, but I've got a team and I've never looked back. And we didn't need the bank. We're 29 years in and we're doing okay.
Yeah. So you've built yourself on your own earnings.
Had to. Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting. One of the other business owners that I interviewed a couple of weeks ago, she's a fashion designer, and she, by choice, grew solely on retained earnings.
Right.
And
exactly.
once she had a couple of stores, the banks were interested, but she just, nope, I'm going to.
Exactly. They're all of a sudden interested now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the adage is when you need them,
Right.
they're not there, but when you don't
Right.
need them, they're knocking themselves over.
Exactly.
So, and now what about in terms of that when you started bringing people on? That's a big shift from a sole proprietorship to
Huge.
now you're running a company, because you're now, first of all, you're probably doing less of what you love, which was the music therapy. And now you're doing more of the running the business side, right?
Yeah.
With the E-Myth thing about the different hats that you wear, you're
Yeah.
you know doing more of the business running hat. How did you handle that transition?
Well, first of all, I read that book, The
Yeah.
E-Myth, and it was brilliant. So here's where it goes back now to my childhood and some of the things I like.
Mhm.
The good news was I do love systems. I
Okay.
love creating systems. I love creating strategy. That's a part of me that I really do enjoy doing. And I've never given up doing the technical part of music therapy. I still do it today. Will probably always be somewhere within the technical world as well as on the business part. So in my business and around my business, and when people say, "Are you working on your business today?" Oh, yes, but I also like working in my business
Yes.
in the trenches, right? So it is all there. But you are correct. Shifting the responsibility of shifting from solopreneur into a team. I wasn't perfect at that. I wasn't excellent at that, actually. I didn't know how to do that.
Okay.
I learned. And again, it was about finding the professional resources I needed, and I foibled a lot. And I look back at my earliest teams and I apologize from the depth of my soul that I know that I was not able to create the culture and the experience that you deserved to have. I did the best I could with what I knew, but it's not what I'm able to do now. And I wish I could go back and give them a better experience than what I was able to give them. And it also took a long time to find the right team.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not sure what you're going to need. And the diversity on my team now, so many of them, they're the technicians. They are awesome music therapists, but they're also good on the admin side, and they're also good at the sales side, and they're also good in the management side.
Okay.
And it's fun sharing all the jobs with everybody. So we've been able to create something that is helping us through a difficult time like right now. I couldn't do it without them.
Right.
It's team. Yeah.
So you're doing, so your music therapists aren't just the technicians, if you will, doing the music therapy. They're also involved in the running side of the business.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And everyone at different levels, but because they're out with our clients one-on-one, so they have to be good at communications and expressing what they're doing. They are representatives of the work and of music therapy as a whole. Like, it's not just our company. We are, because music therapy is still new in the country, we have to be good representatives of what the work really is.
Right.
And they are excellent at that. And they're also learning. You know, we have team trainings every Monday morning, and we will go through things that are on our mind and what's difficult. And help each other through the challenges. So it's an incredible workplace for me to be in, as well as I hope for them.
So, you know, just backtracking again, that journey of letting go, as you brought the team on? You said, that you learned along the way. What are some of the things that you did to be able to get, people will do things in different ways, and sometimes they can do it better than you in their own ways.
Right.
Can you share a couple of things you did to be able to adapt to that, to be able to let go and allow them to find their way?
The one thing I've done is stopped focusing on trying to fix any person's gap or weakness. I don't focus there at all anymore. Because it's my perception of what a gap and a weakness is. It's not necessarily a gap or a weakness. I focus 100% on people's strengths. Where are they naturally aligned? What is their strength, and let's focus on strengthening our strengths.
I love that.
And that's key to our entire business and what you're good at. So if you are feeling that you are best in a one-to-one setting, we're really going to help foster a way for you to be really strong in that setting while also dipping your toes into facilitating groups.
Right.
But it may also be that, just prior to this, to COVID right now, one of my staff started bubbling up around being very strong in systems and creating systems. And I could tell she was seeing a few things we needed to tweak. Well, with COVID and our caseload dropping below 50%, moving those clients virtually, gave me the opportunity to get to know her better and what her strengths were. And through some projects that she was able to develop, they really strengthened not only the company, but all of us as individuals within our professional practice. It's been wonderful to bring her on board. So she's now called the systems manager.
Oh, you're even allowing yourself to let go, step back from the systems too.
Right?
Wow. Bravo for you.
Thanks.
So on this journey, like, you can't be in business this long without having caca hit the fan at different times. Could you share perhaps one time that might have happened? What is it that got you through that?
Yeah, there's been a few. When I actually started the business, it was a significant economic downturn in 1991. Anyone who was around then, there was a lot of things that were happening even at the start.
Yeah.
And I think that set the foundation for all the economic downturns that were going to happen after that. A very significant challenge. Gosh, I don't know if there's been one bigger than what we're going through now, which is the actual, like this second, I think I'm going through the hardest one, which is going back to work. The shutdown was easier than our transition right now.
Wow.
That I'm not sure how long it's going to take. I can no longer forecast. Normally I'm a long-term thinker, and I'm having a hard time.
We can't.
Because
it could shut down again in a few months.
Right.
Yeah.
And our clients are in long-term care. Our clients are in hospitals. So we are doing a hybrid of services right now, of virtual services as well as in-person services, but we still are 50% down in revenue. So this is this is taking grit. This is taking daily dedication for me that, all I dream about at night is a vacation.
But we can't go anywhere.
We can't go anywhere. And then having to shift my mindset into, what am I doing today? I I have to be as present as I possibly can. And I miss the long-term thinking. I'm still dreaming, but I want to keep everyone safe and healthy and
Yeah.
secure. Yeah. So this is the toughest time, Ravi, for sure.
So, and especially since, so much of your work is in the highest risk areas of our community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with this, and this uncertainty, and understand what you're saying, that you like that long-term planning, you like to be that, and you've sort of got to dance more in the moment now.
Mm-hmm. How
are you supporting and nurturing yourself through this?
That's really good. Well, so if we go back to the strengthening our strengths part, I am fortunate that one of my strengths has been to have real quality relationships around me. And I am digging deep into the people that are around me. I'm becoming more comfortable with asking for that elusive help when you need it. And
you're asking for help?
I know.
Wow, that is honestly, that is huge for
it's huge.
Yeah.
But it's also going back to knowing I need professional supports in my life. And I also need friends in my life. And my husband and I need to be doing well together because now we're working in the same area. And so there's all those things that, putting more time into my relationships has been key. And it's been an opportunity to do that. And so that's been one. The other thing is I'm taking the time to go through my business plan. And this is something I do twice a year anyways, but this is adding a third time to this year because a lot of rejigging is going to have to be made. Yes. I am doing all the things. I am, revisiting our language, with all the things coming up right now with COVID, but also Black Lives Matter, with also ensuring that we are being aware of what's happening in the world. Just securing our language in that, recognizing the needs of our clients and ensuring we're identifying those, making sure we're accessible, which, one of the things that I've sadly found out, and the reason why we weren't able to successfully move into virtual, is that a lot of the people that we serve do not have any access to tech. Right. Access is critical. So how can I support making that happen? Where I'm looking at our entire SWOT analysis, I'm looking at our strengths, I'm revisiting opportunities. I ignore my threats. I can't control those. And I don't spend a lot of time in our weaknesses. I'd rather see how many weaknesses I can shift up to an opportunity. So those are all the things that I can do right now. And as well as getting set up with lighting and the right microphone and testing. This is like my 6th microphone. Is this working out today?
It is working fine.
Great.
And you work with microphones all the time.
We do. And I'm changing them depending on what I'm doing. So it's been so interesting. So all those things we can do right now, because my world, and I know everybody's world, has shifted. Forever, JB Music Therapy will now provide virtual music therapy as well as in-person music therapy. And we're going to dedicate to make sure we can reach all the clients who need our services and be accessible to them, especially during their times of need. So we're trying to figure that out.
Well, and what that says to me is that immediately amplifies your market to global.
Right.
And so you've got to think about different times and, there's all sorts of opportunity that is there.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and this is where also the speaking comes into, Ravi, right? Like where we can the global education, global information, and then attach it to the services that we also provide. Like, you can see the funnel of support and impact that we can make with the variety of services that you can, both of us provide.
Yeah.
And so this is how we can help at this time and live that passion we're talking about.
And something else I want to come back to is where you said, I love the way that, okay, can't do anything about the threats, the weaknesses. The thing I've found, I've done strategic planning for over 30 years, and a lot of people do SWOT, but I find they go through it and then they go make a plan and they never pay attention to what they did anyway, right?
Right.
There's another system which is aligned with what you're talking about, which is based on appreciative inquiry, which is called SOAR.
Oh,
And
yes. Tell me more. Tell me more again.
Opportunities, aspirations, and then results. You concretize it down into results. So it moves it into a plan. And I find that works so much better. You need to be aware of the threats, absolutely, of the weaknesses. Yeah. But if you can, back to your strengths-based approach, I'm very much of that. And I do that working with individuals, but also with organizations. SOAR is very, very aligned with that, with the strengths-based approach.
Mm-hmm.
So, in this time, you've shared what you've been doing. There's a lot of entrepreneurs who are challenged with this time. Their business has just sometimes stopped and they don't know how they're going to move forward in this new world. Everything is changed. What advice would you give them in terms of finding a way to move forward?
Mm-hmm. And that's the reality. And we're all going to be on the spectrum of barriers of depending on what industry you're in and what your business model is. But you're also going to be on the spectrum of opportunity. And so it's about recognizing that. So if you are just feeling barrier after barrier after barrier after barrier, it really does come to recognizing that and doing as we call the lean in approach, lean into it and what sort of feelings are coming there. But believing that you don't have to have it all figured out to move forward is the most critical decision. You have to know that as entrepreneurs, the best thing we know how to do is take a next step. It might not be the dream step. It might not be the giant leap that you so desperately want to happen. It might be just a quarter of a step, just putting your foot a little bit ahead, but it's a step. And we need to do that every day. It's about sitting at your desk and, if you're a goal setter, setting your goals. If you're a list maker, setting your list. If you're a visionary, it's one dream for the day. So again, find what your strength is, move into that direction because you've got it. And if you can at all call yourself an entrepreneur, you've got it. You can take that next step, right? Yeah.
And I sort of go with that meme, with me, that if you take a step forward and then a step back, it's not a step back. It's just the cha-cha because you're going to go back forward. I'm a dancer.
Right. It's so good.
You get in the rhythm of it.
Yeah. You get in the rhythm of it. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. And if you found it of value, could I ask you a favor? Could you share it on social media and perhaps share what made it so useful to you? That's how we spread word about this. And if you've got a moment, if you could go onto iTunes or wherever you get your podcast and do a quick review on this and share again what made it so useful to you. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
it farther. And everyone that knows me knows that I am stronger. Leave it all behind, I don't need nothing to distract me. Nothing can get in my way, I know that I'll run free. I got the energy, it's all I need to finish. And everyone that knows me knows that I can do this. Yeah, I know that I can do this. I know I got this. Just watch me do this. I know I got this. I know I got this. Oh, just watch me do this. Hey, yeah. Oh, just watch me do this. Show me what you got, you think you're able to keep up with me. And if we're side by side, they'll never even be ready. There ain't no telling what will happen next.